We start by giving you 3 rolls on the tower, and I've got 8 random questions here, and whatever you roll, that is where we start.
I love this. Very lucky person, but
I'm that way.
The questions are going to be great.
Anytime I have an opportunity to like roll a die or like pick a random card and win or lose something, I will lose whatever that is.
Okay, well, 2 losers here today.
All right.
Hi.
Okay, no, you got a safe question to start
good.
here. This is your onset vice. What is your onset vice? The thing you turn to, whether it's a physical thing or a thing you do to kind of power through a tough day.
You know, the first thing that popped into my head for Obliterated was Flaming Hot Cheetos, Le Mans.
I feel like that's kind of
It's
appropriate.
terrible, but you know, it was action packed. We were burning a lot of calories, so you know, just trying to keep up the fitness.
Now, the first thing that I thought of was, Pringles, because...
You like Pringles?
I'm just thinking about the Pringles can scene.
Yes. Oh, you're right. There's that scene.
Yeah, I think about that now when I look at a Pringles can, so...
And you know what? I've been asked a lot of questions about the action that we did in the show and how we each really got an opportunity to try most of it. And I always forget that might have been the hardest action scene, trying to squat over a Pringles can for like hours in a tiny little helicopter.
Not that I've ever done this, but I do always think about that if I was ever in an emergency in a car and like you have a cup or some sort of similar container. Like,
always look around in your car before you turn it on.
This conversation would not be appropriate on any other ladies' night, but because it's Obliterated, it is okay.
You know, ladies, we tend to talk about some ridiculous stuff, so I think it's on point.
Totally fine and fair. Curse words are free and clear.
Okay,
on this
great,
show.
because I just did BBC London and I said the SHIT word and I thought I was going to get kicked out of there. It was really uncomfortable. I'm so sorry if that offended anyone, but also this show says the F word every 5 seconds, so if you're not into cussing, maybe don't tune in.
Take a pass on that. All right, you got your second roll in the tower now.
Oh, great. 4 is my lucky number. Let's see if
4?
that one.
Okay.
3.
3's my lucky number.
Oh.
This is actually an Obliterated question. Let's say you were a part of an elite special forces team and you had to track down a bomb in Las Vegas. Which 2 actors from this ensemble would you pick to be on your team that you think would give you the best chance of pulling off the mission?
Maya. Maya was the brains behind the brains. And I found when I watched the show, I was like, oh my God, if we didn't have Maya, none of this would have been possible. I don't know, this is tough because everyone has such a huge responsibility, but Maya, Kimmy is just so phenomenal. This is like her first big thing, and you would have never guessed that.
This is not an easy first project.
No, and she was flawless, so we'll go with Maya.
Okay.
Well, we really need a bomb deactivator and an EOD, so we'll go with C. Thomas Howell's character.
Fair enough. You have enough trust in him, okay?
Yeah.
In the real person versus
I
the character.
never answer with the traditional responses.
One of my favorite questions from the Vegas event that I pitched to the 3 guys is if you had the opportunity to get a drink with 2 of these characters, who would be at the top of your wish list, but then who would be at the bottom?
What did they say?
Haggerty is for me, Haggerty is the bottom.
Yeah, because
I think the first person Hayden picked was Haggerty.
That sounds very Hayden.
That's the wrong answer.
Yeah, no, that's very Hayden. I love that.
All right, you got one last roll on the tower here.
Okay, I'm feeling a 4.
Feeling a 4? It's gonna happen. I feel like I
That
have
would
to
have been so amazing, but
I have to give you 4 at the end, just so we do it. All right, so this is roll swap. If you had the opportunity to roll swap with anyone in this ensemble, who would you pick and why?
Like in real life or their characters?
Like you play their character and they play your character.
Oh. I would love to swap with Nick and play McKnight to get back at him for all the shit his character puts Ava through, and he needs to play Ava. You get what I'm saying?
Life in her shoes.
Yeah.
Oh,
literally,
I like
those
that.
freaking heels.
I always just love the thought of that as an acting exercise too.
Yeah.
Just in terms of seeing how 2 different actors would play a character in a different way.
Agreed.
All right, so number 4 is high-low. Can you give me 1 audition high and then also 1 audition low, but tell me what you learned from that low that you were able to apply to future auditions?
There's so many of both. A low, let's start low. That would be the first one that popped into my head. It was Yeah, we'll leave names out because
Fair enough.
At this point in my career, I was past like just pre-reads. And so normally you walk into a room and there's a camera set up and it's a real proper, audition. But for some reason, I walked in and it was a pre-read and my ego was fine, but I was just confused. And it's like, wait, did I do something? Like I just got in my head and then I just like out of body, it was like I was having a seizure and he wasn't even looking at me in the audition. And I have no idea what came out of my mouth. And he was just like, thank you. And then I walked out and I call it the walk of shame. I believe, was it at Sony? Yeah, because it's in Culver City and it's tough getting there.
That is.
And you have to walk I swear, a mile in between the parking and the front door. So I call it the walk of shame, where you go back to the waiting room, you change your shoes, you put on more comfortable clothes. And I was doing that and I was bent down and I just overheard the assistant go, yeah, we don't need to bring her headshot. So I got in trouble also for not bringing a headshot and I was just like, we don't do that anymore. I don't know, it was very weird. And then I popped up and I was like, I'm sorry, because he knew that I had heard him, but it was fine. Cut to a month later, I was straight to producers on another project and I walked in and he was there, the casting director, and I did well. And at the end he goes, hey, by the way, you did great today. He basically was like, I remember you before. Yeah, that was funny. And this is a fun story actually of how I met John and Hayden. When I was 20, I went in for American Reunion.
Oh, wow.
And I met John and Hayden. So this was, a very long time ago. And my character that I was auditioning for was on Molly. And so they were and I was testing with Chris Klein, and they were like, do whatever you want. Just go for it. And I was like, okay. And next thing I know, I'm humping a chair. And when I left, my manager called and he was like, how'd it go? And I was like, oh, it's fine. I humped a chair. And he goes, wait. Can we circle back to humping the chair? And I explained, and he actually to this day uses that as a barometer for how did your audition go?
Oh my God.
And it means did you just go for it or did you hold back? He obviously doesn't mean hump a chair at every audition. But that's John Josh Hayden, the projects that they're involved with, that they create, it calls for the actors to not hold back. And that's what I've always loved about them. And it's so fun to have so many years go by and then get to work with them, on Obliterated, and you cannot hold back.
I love how full circle that is, but I also how wholesome the idea of humping a chair in an audition has become.
My manager, did you hump a chair? And it doesn't mean that. And just FYI, they did not tell me to do that. They just said, do whatever you want, But I love that about them.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back for a brand new edition of Collider Ladies Night. Today's guest, Shelley Hennig. Obliterated. My God.
Did you see
this
it?
show. I saw it. I should have thought that this was what I was going to get from John, Josh, and Hayden, given where they started. But I think my brain is so morphed to fit Cobra Kai type content that I'm like, whoa.
Yeah,
Whoa.
they're really not comparable except for the fact that they're both brilliant shows.
Now we've hit the meat of our interview. I started at the very, very beginning, was doing my research, reading all about the Miss Teen USA stuff, and in particular that when you won, it came with an opportunity to study acting. Is that where the dream to become an actor was first sparked, or did you have it before?
That's where it happened. And it wasn't that it was acting, because I really never paid attention. I watched Saved by the Bell growing up, and that's kind of it. I wasn't a huge TV film person. I was a very active dancer. I did not grow up doing pageants, but I grew up a competitive dancer. So that's where I spent a lot of my time. And so it was my dance teacher who suggested that I do Miss Teen Louisiana. There was a family tragedy. My dance teacher kind of stepped in for a minute and she was like, go do this. It'll get you out of Louisiana. And I won, and I thought it ended there. I didn't know that it went on to Miss Teen USA. I somehow won that, and then with that came the acting scholarship. And the reason I took it was because it was free, and it was an opportunity on a silver platter. And I was like, and you moved to New York. So I was like, we'll see how this goes. And day one, I remember we were doing breathing exercises, and I just remember being like, this is the weirdest shit I have ever heard of, but I'm obsessed. And it was from that day forward, I was like, I'm going to get good at this.
Okay, so that was the point where the obsession started, whether it was in that program or maybe on one of your first professional sets. Do you remember the first thing you did that made you stop and say to yourself, I'm choosing the right path. I am good at this?
Oh, wow. I don't, progress is not linear. One of my favorite quotes. And I would just say, I started, my first gig was on a soap opera, and I somehow booked a 4-year, contract just before my acting school finished. And it was like being paid to go to get your master's and to have to do it. I mean, it feels live. You get one take to do every scene, and you cry in pretty much every scene, or your character's having sex. So from that, I feel like those 4 years were very, very important. And I've just always had, I don't know, I have so much respect for those 4 years of my career. And I always give credit to that show and the other actors that I watched and learned so much from. I don't know, I would just say that those 4 years were very important. And great for auditioning because you get one shot. So but now with self-tapes, you can do 20. So I'm like, dang it. I liked being the girl that could do it once, the first one.
I've had so many people on this show who got their start on soap operas, and they call it the acting boot camp that they needed.
It's incredible.
What is one thing that you learned while working on that show that you still find yourself applying to your approach to playing characters today? But then can you also give me the opposite, some new technique that you recently discovered that, you're exploring more and more with every new project you take?
Yes. One thing that was really important with surviving the grueling soap opera experience was you had to be very adaptable, and you had to go to extreme places like that. There was no prep time. You don't get to say, like, I need a second or I need a minute. Like, that's kind of frowned upon. If you just have to do it. So I remember one day being like, okay, this is a really intense scene coming up, and I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling like I'm prepped. And I remember just looking around and noticing that the way that the furniture was organized in the room took me back to my living room as a kid. And I just was able to step into a particular thing that happened. Like, it wasn't that intense, but I don't know. I just was panicked, and I was like, I got to figure out something. And I just went with
I love how vivid that memory is.
The way the furniture was placed. And so I would say adaptability has been really important to me. It's also allowed me, I think, to kind of take on anything on a set and just go with it. Adaptability. And then as far as character work, I'd say I didn't really start that until after the soap opera. Brought a lot of myself to that character because it's your first job. It's kind of an easier way in, or at least it was for me. And also I was trained Meisner, so whatever. It's the geeky stuff. But what I've been doing in the last, let's not put time frame on it. Something that's very important to me is to start physically with a character. Sometimes it's just a word. Like, I could tell Joaquin Phoenix in Napoleon. I don't know if this is what he did, but I was like, he played this like a toddler. And his physical movements at times were like what a 3-year-old, would be doing. And that's what I like to do, start physically. I've played characters, where maybe they're a little more curious and they're less like me as a person and like in everybody's business and like happy to, meet people. And so like a curious character would maybe be more leaned back. Just little subtle physical movements is what I prefer to start with.
Okay, I get that approach. I have so many follow-up questions. One thing that was crossing my mind, especially given this industry has a habit of boxing people in. You came from the Miss Teen USA stuff, and then you focused the beginning of your career on soap opera acting. Is it then difficult to transition to other TV shows and feature films where folks are like you could do that, but I don't know if we could take you seriously in this realm, or maybe you didn't face that at all?
It was certainly a fear of mine. I really have rebelled against beauty, if you will. I felt like because of the Miss Teen USA title and then going on a soap opera, which typically a very beautiful, people. I was worried that I'd be put into that category. So it made me work extra hard to really feel good about my work and my craft. So I just focus on that. I can't really focus or pay attention to what other people are going to do. And I feel like I've been very lucky. I feel like I've not been put in a box.
You have not.
Yeah.
I've
genre hop. I'm all over the place.
A genre hop makes me very happy. There's this particular genre movie I will ask a question about. But first, I always love highlighting the good on this show, but I do think there's great value that comes from learning from the bumps in the road along the way. And the one in particular I wrote down was Secret Circle's cancellation, because I just like have vivid memory. It was right when my sister moved in with me, and I just remember sharing that with her and how upset we were when that got canceled. So what were some lessons learned at that point about how the business operates in terms of the cancellation and renewal process? And is there anything about those lessons learned that have impacted the roles you've taken since?
I think for me, Secret Circle was my first, so I finished the soap opera, and then I had my first pilot season, and I booked my first pilot, which was Secret Circle, and I flew to Vancouver and all of a sudden was living in Vancouver. I had never filmed single camera. I had only done multi-camera. So it was a huge learning lesson for me technically to film that pilot. And I was it was really hard for me to adjust to. And I really leaned on my castmates. They're still my best friends to this day.
But a good group on that one.
They have all texted me this morning, every single one of them. They're so excited, and they've been such a great support because they'd all been doing it longer than I had. But yeah, that was a really difficult transition. And then we got to do the season, and I'd never filmed outdoors either. And we're in freezing Vancouver.
Never would have thought about that.
I know, you're inside at like a studio on the soap opera. That was the only job I had, but I did it for 4 years. So for me, I think that was just an important year for me, but I think it was really tough. And I think the cancellation was obviously devastating. I loved that character. I loved the story. I loved my cast. Andrew Miller and I are still very close. I think I was just still rolling with the punches at the time. Yeah, I'm trying to. That's so long ago. It's hard to remember.
It's so long ago, but it's still one of those shows that I still see pop up on lists of shows that were lost too soon. Yeah. And I don't know. I fully believe that.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it would have been amazing to do season 2. I think I was still naive to things, and I didn't assume that we would get a season 2. I'm more of like a protect myself. Let's not get too excited right away, which kind of annoys people. Like, I feel like John, Josh, Hayden at times are like, can you be excited? I'm like, no, I am. I'm just being cautious.
Everyone gets annoyed at me because every time I'm going to shoot a ladies' night, I won't tell anybody who the guest is in fear that I'm going to jinx it and it'll get canceled.
You're so right. You're so right. I mean, you never know.
You never know. But then things work out and it's wonderful. I'm going to build on learning about the technical side of things to talk about one of my favorite movies of yours, Unfriended.
I was hoping you'd say
that. I was at that South by Southwest premiere. One of my favorite...
I wasn't even there. We weren't even invited.
It's crazy, right? One of my favorite memories from that is we all saw the movie, we loved it, and by the time we got back to our hotel room, whatever PR company was working on it had sent us friend requests from Laura Barnes, and because we were so fresh and new and didn't know, that was one of the most effective marketing plays ever.
The people behind that movie, and I'll shout out to Nelson Greaves. Yes. It was his idea, and for those who don't know, the show takes place, and this was pre-pandemic. This was like before everyone was
You were one of the first that started the screen life trend.
Yes, Unfriended absolutely was. And that's what was so, I think, special about it. But also, it was shot so, that was also like theater. So we all shot in this one house, and each character had their own bedroom as if they were at home after school, Zooming with their group of friends, talking shit. And we're all in high school. And the way we filmed it was they had the living room was sort of like the epicenter. And so the director and Nelson were watching us it's a complicated, but we each filmed ourselves on laptops with GoPro cameras. So the way that it was set up was our room was lit. So there was never any lighting changes. So one day, and this is an independent film, and I had done a lot of television. So I was so excited to do we got paid like basically nothing originally. And I was just so pumped to be there. And the idea of the story would change every day. And like what was important was we all had to be really good at improv to be able to do this type of movie and to make it feel loose and real. But I just remember being like, looking at my co-stars and being like, I don't know. And I like raised my hand at lunch one day and I was like, I have an idea. What if we shot this all in one take? And the cast just looks at me like, I'm gonna fucking kill you. Like, are you kidding me, Shelley? Like that is like ridiculous. And they're also thinking they've done independent projects where maybe it wasn't like a safe space to have wild ideas. And so they were just like, oh God, we did it. And I think every one of those actors would argue it's one of the most special moments we had as actors. I mean, to be able to, and also we had laptops, so you could pull the script up. If you got lost for a second, you could pretend like your character was grabbing a water bottle and like just kind of peek through. We were texting each other in real time. Nelson was sending us they would like shut the lights off without telling us, so you'd react in real time. It was very interactive, super unique, and one of the most special experiences of my career. And I think the movie's really good.
It is really good. You know what's funny about that, too? The sequel's actually really good, which I feel like usually does not happen with stuff like that.
It's amazing.
Yeah, 2 for 2. Now you need to come back to the horror genre, though.
Oh, you think so?
I do.
Maybe as a grown-up. I've done a few, teenage roles in horror films, but I think...
There's a mom? Like you play a mom
yeah,
and like
your
kids may be possessed or something?
Sure.
I don't know. I feel like that's what I
a lot of those scripts have come to me. I think it's really important who the director is, and I do hope that one day I'm going to be very intrigued by one of those because it is nice to really just go to those intense places every now and then.
I've got a lot of horror suggestions for it. That's my genre. That's my favorite genre in the world.
What's your favorite horror movie?
Oh, it's Scream. That was one of my Dicey questions, too.
Oh.
It's always Scream, and the only question that pertains to Scream is, what's your favorite scary movie?
Oh, well, Unfriended.
Good choice.
No, I think Martyrs is really brilliant.
No.
Yeah, the French one.
No.
Why?
So anytime someone asks the question, what horror movie scared you too much where you won't watch it, I always say the original Martyrs. It's a very good movie, very well done, beautifully acted, extremely dark to the point that because of what happens in the ending, I was sad for days after watching that movie.
See, that's so me to pick that one.
All right.
I'm sorry.
I get it. It's a very good movie. I can't deny that. All right. Before I go into Obliterated, one big broad question to hopefully hit some more titles here. I love asking this question, too, because I love highlighting how many different approaches to acting there are out there. This is a big question. Of all the actors you've ever worked with, can you name one with a very similar process to your own where the two of you were immediately in sync the second you met? But then I also want an example of the opposite, someone who challenged you to adapt and maybe try something new and for the better.
Oh, okay. I think it's so unique how anyone goes into it. I think it'd be really hard to be like, it was similar. But I will say Nick, Zano, and I were very in sync from the beginning. I think our personalities are similar. We've done our 10,000 hours. We were so ready for this moment. And we just came in with such respect for the project and for each other and for the ensemble. And it was just seamless working with Nick. It really, and you had to feel that safety because we go some wild places, and we didn't have to work on that. It was immediate. I'll speak for myself. Hopefully Nick agrees. But that was really lovely. But I don't think our approach to acting, maybe approach to how you are on a set,
Still counts, still part of the process.
I'd say we're responsible, always on time, and we cared about everybody there. So there's that. There's certainly been people who, have a different approach. And again, my brain goes to set etiquette because I do think that's very important to me.
I think it's one of the most important things.
Yeah. And I worked with Well, to be fair, there's one, I'll leave the name out because he's so brilliant and he's so respected and he's incredible, but like he's a very, very big actor. And I was just offered a small role to just kind of be there and like have a line here and there. But I was told he was in character 24/7, but he would pick and choose when he was in character, when he wasn't, who he'd be in character with, who he wouldn't be in character with. He also wouldn't start the scene at the same spot every time. So you were kind of playing like dodgeball. So like, and if he starts it at a different spot, that means my character might be over there at this point. So I would have to like reset or like run to that spot. So it was I do love a challenge. So I like secretly loved it. But I was just like, I hope he doesn't think I'm terrible because I'm literally just trying to follow, his where he wants to start, So that was tricky, but it all worked out and I learned a lot there. And then, there've been people who like FaceTime like at the chairs. And for me, that's like, unless we're all in on it, I'm like, I think we should, I don't know, things like that.
That's like when I try to be social and friendly whenever I'm at a press day for interviews and like everyone's chit-chatting before. I'm like, no, just like let me do my prep and look at my notes.
Yeah, we all have our different process. Yeah.
All right, Obliterated full force. For Ava now, is there anything about that character and what this show was maybe that made you think, this is what I need in my life right now as an actor evolving my craft? What did you think you could gain from playing her now?
So I was in Ireland last summer doing, wait. No, that's not how this went. So I was in Atlanta shooting the Teen Wolf movie on all night shoots. I promise I'll get to the answer. I tend to do this. And you're on a different sleep schedule. It's you're filming 17 hours a day. I was doing action and whatever. So then it's not every week that you get 5 auditions for 5 straight to series or like funded films, big names. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, this is the worst week to have to do these self-tapes. And I decided, as I'm getting older, I'm like, I can't do it all. So it was a very tough decision, but I decided to only tape 3 out of the 5. Mm-hmm. And when I saw Obliterated, I tend to look at the role before I read who's involved. Like, I don't care as much about that. I'm like, I look at the role first. And I saw CIA, and I was just like, nah, I'm not ready for that. And I passed.
You passed.
Because I thought it was like a procedural, and at the time I was looking for comedy. So I freaking passed. Then I finished the Teen Wolf movie. I get back to LA. I got COVID. I was really down. I was exhausted. And I was like, you know what? I've never taken a break. I think I'm going to take like a month off. No auditions. I was telling my buddy Ben Lawson, phenomenal fellow actor, that I was going to take a break. And he was like, are you kidding me? How did you not test for this show called Obliterated? It's you. I was like, what? I opened my phone and he's like, and I was like, oh, I passed on it. It's a drama. I want to do a comedy right now, or take a break and then do a comedy. And he's like, Shelley, they haven't cast the role and it's a freaking comedy. I was like, what? Long story short, I taped 2 days later and the rest is history. But I almost missed this opportunity. And it is so unlike me, but that just goes to show where I was at the time. And I'm just so grateful that Ben Lawson took me to dinner after I had COVID and we had that conversation. And yeah.
Oh, you're so perfect in this role, too. This is a very, very well-cast show.
I agree. Josh, Hayden really know what's up, and everyone is so perfect at their roles.
In them, I trust always.
Yes.
All right, to highlight more of the actors in this ensemble, I'll put up the spoiler warning for this just so you could talk about it freely. But in case anybody out there doesn't know, Obliterated is available to stream on Netflix right now. So have at it. You have no idea what you're in for, and you're gonna love it.
No idea.
Really, no idea. Can you give me an example of a scene when a scene partner was just what you needed, where it was a tough scene and maybe you wouldn't be able to access something in your own character unless it was for what they did for you as your scene partner?
Man, my brain immediately goes to Nick because we had the most scenes together. And like I said, it felt like we were very in sync. And it feels like Nick and I have had very similar backgrounds in this industry, just as far as like the craft goes. I can't really put my finger on it, but like we were just thought we were so well matched. Like we both wanted to be as physical as we were with like the action stuff. We had, good boundaries with certain things. We also didn't hold back. I just felt like anytime it was going to be me and Nick, it was just like, yeah, this is something lovely is going to happen here. But I felt that about everybody, but I worked a lot with him. I'm trying to think, is there like a funnier answer here? Like, I mean, Tommy, like spoiler alert, but he's like Weekend at Bernie's. He's like passed out half the series, but he would just do like a arm drop or like a snort or like a fart or whatever, and he would steal the scene. And Nick and I would just look at each other after each take and be like, he's brilliant. How? He's passed out and he's stealing the show. And then also there's Lori Petty.
When she popped up,
yes. She is phenomenal.
So
she is such a unique person on and off screen. We loved working with her. She just brings so much life, and Nick and I were dying. I mean, I don't really have the words for it. I really respect her, and you just knew that she was going to bring something special, and she did.
Always, consistently. I love it.
But everyone did. Everyone brought so much of Paola. Paola brings so much of herself to the role of Gomez, and I respect that. Terrence, dying. I mean, he just will go, like every now and then, or like the way he looks when he's like obliterated, hilarious to me. Eugene is a very good friend of mine. We got to reunite on this show, which was life-changing. He and I are very close. He brought so much seriousness and depth and emotion that like I was like, oh my God, who's this person? I hadn't worked with him before, but I knew him as a human. So he brought that, which was so important. And obviously he's funny. Allison is just a dream. She is so sweet and she is so great. And she gets to play, well, spoilers or no?
Well, we're in spoiler territory now.
Yeah, we are.
She's got her work cut out for her.
She gets to play like two different roles essentially, and
Very
she
good at that.
killed it. She'd have us giggling. Who am I missing? Yeah, Paola, Terrence.
I feel like you got the
Nick is hilarious.
main ensemble.
Everyone's funny. I don't know. Everybody brought something.
Again, perfectly cast show right here.
Yeah, the other girls showed their tits. I showed my butt. Terrence had to do a prosthetic situation. Like, Nick showed his butt. Everyone had to do something like that in the show. See, Tommy.
Yeah.
Shows a lot.
I've heard that story.
You heard the story?
Oh,
Great.
I know.
So we
that,
don't need to. I don't need to tell his story.
Prosthetic went in the trash.
He's like, nah, I'm not doing that. It's gonna be a the real thing is coming in.
Yeah. To each their own.
We had a lot of respect
whatever
for that.
everybody wants to do that makes them happy, comfortable, and go to the furthest extent with this show. Because I feel like if you don't get a group of actors who aren't willing to go 110%,
it's not going to work
with a concept. Yeah, it just like flat out does not work.
Tommy was very important to me. He's been around a long time, and he's so phenomenal. And each day that he would work, he'd come up to me and just look me dead in the eyes. I could get emotional thinking about it. He would just be like, "You're killing it." Like, he's like the responsibility that we all have, but like I don't know. He was really important to keep me going, and just it was so nice that someone like him who's been around, who's worked with anyone you can imagine, like saw something in me, it felt like, and he was like really supportive of that.
It matters, and it matters when people,
keeps you going.
Say something too, because I feel like a lot of times people may think that but not say it, and it could really mean something to the person in the moment.
Yeah, it was really important. Paola brought me a coffee one day. I like almost cried. I was like, "Are you kidding me? Who are these people? You're so nice."
I might cry over a cup of coffee when I'm in need as well. All right, I have to let you go soon. I want to make sure to squeeze in 2 more questions, because one thing I tend to get obsessed with John, Josh, and Hayden's work is when they plant the perfect oneer in a series. And you are right smack in the middle of a pretty epic one in episode 5, I believe. What was it like filming that? And is there anything about the process of pulling off an action oneer that surprised you?
I mean, love a oneer, because the Unfriended story, So I was very pumped about that. But this is an action oneer, which I had never been a part of. And Sherwin, our director, was so cool, calm, and collected. I was just like, how? How is this possible? I don't know to this day how it was possible, but we did it. And I mean, the stunt coordinator, everyone was just great at their jobs, just like our characters being the best at what they do. I felt like everyone, cast, crew, was the best at what their responsibility was, and all the little pieces just came together, and it was one of the most rewarding, scenes we got to shoot.
It's
for
so
sure.
Well done.
Yeah.
I love how the camera also cuts to like Gomez in the background.
Do you know the story of why?
Why?
Oh, maybe that's her story to tell.
Oh.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
It's nothing dramatic, but
I respect
it's
that.
her story to tell.
Okay. Yeah. One day I'm going to make sure I circle back and get
they
that
couldn't
story
do a
from
close-up
her.
of her.
Okay. Well, it's appropriate. It's appropriate for the character. It's like, it feels to me like exactly where she should be in that moment. Because she's the sharpshooter.
You're right.
Yeah. I thought it worked.
Maybe it wasn't.
Exceptionally well.
Maybe I'm making shit up. I did say the premiere was last night, and they got us obliterated.
Again, you were obliterated. We all understand that. All right, I'll end with this one in hopes of willing a season 2 into existence. At the end of season 1, what do you think Ava's new greatest strength is? Something that will help her on a future mission, but then I also want to know what you think her greatest weakness at that point is. The next thing she'll have to overcome to be a stronger leader.
I think she learns to trust people just a little more. And I think her biggest weakness will be maybe opening her heart.
Ooh, I can see that. I want more. This was wild.
Yeah.
Every single time I saw something in this show, I'm like, oh my, you are taking it to another level. I don't know how you could top that. Something else happened.
I know. And you're right about like Josh Hayden. Like whatever they touch, whatever they create, like, and now it's so cool that I get to be a part of that with them. It's just, I have so much trust in them. It's crazy.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, and it's such a good feeling.
I'm convinced that every single thing that they do, I could feel their passion for that thing and their enthusiasm for telling those stories, radiating off the screens, and you could very much see and feel that.
They don't let anyone bully them or tell them no. I think we got everything they wanted. And it's obvious in the show.
Oh, it is something else. Shelley, congratulations
Thank
on
you.
Obliterated, and I look forward to seeing more from you. Fingers crossed for horror.
So nice to meet.